I've been keeping wolves for 24 years now. I can't even summarize everything that's happened in that time, where the whole fascination comes from, because you have to live it. The story is actually very old. It's been around since my childhood. I've always known that I would have my own wolves at some point, because there were no possibilities to observe or study them even adequately. It doesn't work in the wild because wolves are constantly on the move. No one can keep up with them for a longer study. We see them for 3 minutes and then never again for half a year. So if something like that doesn't exist, then you just have to create it. And the big advantage here is, of course, I have oak trees. I always have green plants. I have water. All my wolves are uphill. All of them are on top. All of them dominate the situation. They're all extremely relaxed as a result. We can only have the dog because we have the wolf, if what evolutionary biology tells us is true. I can understand the dog without understanding him because of our identical social structure. How does it grow up? In an absolute family structure. We have a father, a mother, and children from different age groups. It's a pack, and it's like our families too. We're also more tribal. We're not made for the masses. People go crazy in the masses, and they also become stupid in the masses. So the smaller the group, the more valuable the group. With small groups, I am always the strongest and always the best. I am the safest and the most flexible. And because this structure is so similar and we are so similar, we understand each other, even without understanding each other in the truest sense of the word. And when people imagine that their dog understands every word, no. Actually, none at all. But it understands what they mean, and that's the point.
For me,
life is only worth living in nature. And if I, let's say, withdraw from the digital, perhaps that's the wrong word, because I'm re-entering factual life and leaving fictional life.
Faktische Leben und gehe aus dem fiktiven Leben heraus. Und als Mensch brauche
As a human being, I need nature. As a human being, I need frequencies that are natural, that are biological.
Die Freude und die Zufriedenheit.
The joy and satisfaction that you demand when you renaturalize, let's put it that way, is always a gain.
Renaturalisierst, sagen wir es mal so. Und es ist immer ein Gewinn. Also ich habe noch nie jemanden kennengelernt, der dabei verloren.
I've never met anyone who is lost in this process.
Jeden Tag verlieren, weil sie
But I know endless people who lose every day because they live digitized.
Also wir haben hier europäische Wölfe.
We have European wolves here, Canis lupus lupus, partly from Russia, partly originally from Poland. Then, of course, we have the Iberian wolf, the Canis lupus signatus. That's the one that lives on the Iberian Peninsula, so in Spain and Portugal. And then I have 2 Hudson Bay wolves. These are also Canadian white wolves, Canadian tundra wolves. How often would a wolf hunt a pigeon? Twice.
Zweimal. Und dann merkt ich krieg sie nicht.
And then it realizes it can't get it, and then it doesn't waste any more energy. The dog lives in a state of permanent childishness and dependence. After all, I feed him. It doesn't have to budget. It's like children. They play until they can't play anymore. Then they go home and eat. The wolf doesn't want to continue its children's dependence forever and found an empire. What nonsense. It wants to make strong wolves out of its sons and strong she-wolves out of its daughters, who will later carry this on and in turn pass it on to their own children.
Kinder weitergeben.
And so they keep the population of their prey healthy.
In allen tribalen Gemeinschaften.
In all tribal communities, we have initiation rites. The idea there is that you grow up, that you're self-reliant, that you are critical, independent. And that's completely different in human society. We want to create dependencies, and if possible, for life. So we keep them artificially infantile, always dependent on something. And that is, of course, the opposite of freedom. Of course, that destroys the community. That's clear, because the intelligence is getting lost. The initiative, everything is getting lost.
In den 70er, 80er Jahren.
In the 70s and 80s, if someone had a dog and people came by, they would ask, "Does it follow?" That's exactly what it did. I led the way. I showed it what a father or mother does with their child, and it followed me. That perfectly describes the situation as it should be. Today we talk about obedience. Does he obey? Is the dog obedient? We have to think about what has gone wrong in our heads in recent years. Nature works exclusively through a pulling effect. Pressure creates chaos. Pull creates order. We'd rather follow than be pushed somewhere. That's perfectly normal. And then comes the most horrible thing of all for me, and that is working with the so-called treats. So if I need treats to get my dog to come to me, I've already made all the mistakes beforehand, because why doesn't he want to be with me? A young dog always wants to be with me. A child always wants to be with its parents. That's completely normal. Then I don't have to start with something like that, and if I do something like that, then I destroy it. I reward positive behavior directly. However, not through human closeness and recognition, but by offering something in return. That's what we call prostitution. And I mean that seriously, it's nothing else. With everything we pay for, we enter into a material payment for something. We're making a deal. I don't make a deal with friends and animals. Punishment is something that doesn't occur in nature. You can only do that with humans because we have the ability to think in the present, past, and future. And we can communicate in extreme detail. Punishing a dog is the stupidest thing you can do. I can correct a dog, but correction is always done in the act and not after the fact. The carrot and stick principle is something that targets very archaic structures in our brain because it works, but it's dangerous. And it's destructive. There would be no military if this wasn't possible. Nobody in their right mind would run up to the enemy at the front with their gun, knowing that there are 30,000 men waiting to shoot at them. No one in their right mind would do that. No, you have to reprogram them first. So it works. But it's terrible that it works.
He sometimes really likes to show up, and sometimes he doesn't at all.
Was geben mir die Wölfe?
What do the wolves give me in that sense? A lot of joy. That's one thing. But above all, it's strength and a deeper understanding of true loyalty.
Hello to you.
Dann ist es auch die
Then it's
Kommunikation.
also communication. Communication with the wolves.
Und da habe ich viel von
And I've learned a lot from them about communication possibilities beyond the verbal, visual, and eupactic. And that is the crucial and actually the most interesting thing about my personal research here.
Forschung her. Diese
To
Verbindungen
enter into these connections, and it's fascinating that you can communicate in this way at all.
Aber es ist vor allem es ist der Zusammenhalt.
But it is above all the cohesion, this very clear structure. Not much fighting at all.
Viel Streit, gar nicht.
Not at all what you see on TV when the wolves fight over food. That doesn't exist at all in nature.
Die jagen zusammen.
They hunt together, they pull the game together, and then suddenly the alpha comes along and says it's all mine? That's not possible. No one would accept that either. Those are just fantasies. Fantasies of domination that we're talked into.
Auch dieses Liebe.
And it's simply this loving way of dealing with the others. On the other hand, there's also extreme harshness. It can change in a matter of seconds, milliseconds. I think that's another reason why I find them so attractive, because I'm similar. You also learn how they raise their children, their puppies. It's so completely contrary and logical what they do.
Also wir arbeiten ja eigentlich
So we actually work with increased aggression and warnings. No, you don't do that. No, don't. No, no.
Nein,
And then they shout, but everything is already numb. The wolf does it completely differently.
Zack, die werden auf den Boden gedrückt mit offenem Maul.
Zack, they're pushed to the ground with their mouths open,
Extrem.
but with extreme aggression. If you don't know that, you're scared. That's a different tactic. It's shock, not pain. Little by little, this aggression goes down completely, until after a few weeks, only a is enough, and the little one stops.
Eine Warnung kann ja nur dann.
Why? A warning can only work if I am aware of the consequence. The wolf first shows the consequence, then the warning also works.
Ich weiß, welcher Wolf hinter mir.
I know which wolf is behind me. I don't need to see it. I know that. You can almost feel them physically,
Nur wenn du dich auf die
but only if you get involved with them.
Und dazu brauchst du Zeit.
And you need time to do that, and peace and quiet. You cleanse yourself when you're alone, because only then can you open up to yourself and develop your skills, your communication skills, your empathic skills.
Was ich an Leuten hatte schon, die wirklich schwere Krankheiten
Even people who had serious illnesses pulled themselves out of it, but they had to be alone. Apart from that, there's always a constant barrage of information from all sides that you don't want and can't use. Best tip, sit down in the forest. You'll not only find yourself there, but also lots of other things. If people have really taken something away with them, or then get involved in wolf protection or environmental protection or something else, that's great. Quite honestly, because it has value, and it's carried on. Yes, that makes me happy.
Take my